Yes, sir. You just found it. Intercourse with you. Let's chat. Welcome back to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Thank you for being patient with us as we took that little interval. Right now, we are discussing dating. And right now, Kevin Samuels is actually interviewing a young lady who is 44 years old. She is, I guess, looking for someone to connect with, but she keeps running into issues. And the question that he posed to her is, if I had to ask your ex-boyfriends or your past boyfriends what it was like to experience you as a girlfriend, what would they say? And as you can see, she's kind of got a face on, so it tells you that she probably knows that they'd have an interesting response. So without any further ado, I will go ahead and play that clip just so we can see, her reaction to that question.
So I'm the eldest of three, and
that has nothing to do with the question I just asked. You ain't dating your siblings.
I'm a little bossy and can be a little feisty.
So in other words, you're disrespectful in relationships.
No, I'm not. Now I'm not.
But now you're not, but you're alone.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is very true.
So the woman who wants respect is disrespectful. That's why I just call it straight down the middle as I see it.
I own that. I'll own that. Yes. I can definitely own that. And I think that's part of the reason why now I've realized how important it is for me to, you said agreeable, and I appreciate the term agreeable, but I think for me and my mentality, it's more so about being a team.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
I think this is a good opportunity to take a break so I can add a commentary to what's being said here. I think that was a great question. And unfortunately, it raises a point. Why is it that we expect to get respect from people, our spouse, our mates, our boyfriends, our significant others, if we ourselves are not willing to be respectful towards them, right? This goes back to a biblical principle that says, you reap what you sow. If you show disrespect to people, you can expect to be disrespected. And it's interesting that this young lady, and as you can see, she's a fairly attractive young lady who seems to be, to have a good attitude, and she laughs and she seems lighthearted. But at the same time, I think that's somewhat of a facade. I mean, I think if you ask the question about how her exes experienced her, I think her reactions kind of says it all. First, it was a little bit of a look that she gave, and then it was more along the lines of, they would probably say that I'm bossy. Now, men don't like to feel like they're in a relationship with their mother, where they're coming home to a woman that is essentially bossing them around and telling them what to do. So I think this is a thing that, we could, speak to is to say, as a man, we don't necessarily want a woman who's going to boss us around. We obviously want to be able to have a dialogue and communicate. But in the event that you are dealing with someone who's bossy, I think it's important for you to, take a step back and reanalyze how you're interacting with those people. So moving on, let's see what else she has to say.
Your way don't work.
No, it has not worked. That's true.
So why don't we just stop talking like at 44 you know how to do this? How about that? Because you may be competent at work, but you said it. Everything you've done is not working, and you just do the opposite. How about that? Instead of piecemealing and parsing agreeable, why don't you try to be agreeable? Why don't you do what the 55-year-old lady did, who called on my show the other night and said, normally I wouldn't listen to what you had to say, but I tried what you said, and she got a date out of it. I'm just saying, because I'm being matter of fact, because what you do you have 4 decades of experience to show it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I got one
Mhm.
hard, sobering question for you. How
Mhm.
much more time you think you got
Mm.
on the dating
Not a
scene?
lot.
On the dating scene?
Not a lot. And what I live in Northern California, and my options have not been that great.
I think this raises another great question. We pause the video again because I do want to bring this to light. I think a lot of women feel like they have this indefinite amount of time to strike a connection and to connect with someone. I don't think they take it as serious as they should, right? Building a connection and building a life with someone takes time. And if we use our time and we allocate our time towards other things and we make a relationship a last priority, then you are putting yourself in a position where, you are decreasing the likelihood of you getting into a successful relationship. And especially as you get older. And as you get older for a young lady, your looks tend to fade away. You tend to have more health problems. So if you haven't already established that connection with a man and you find yourself in a situation where, you're getting in towards your middle 40s and creeping towards 50, and you still have yet to really strike up the connection, to build a strong relationship, I think it just creates, more of an obstacle for you to find someone that, suits you. Not to say it's impossible. There are plenty of people who get together in those later ages, but I think her demeanor is one where it's still kind of a game to her, right? It's not something that she sees as a top priority, and she's having fun with it. And to each his own, you give it to her. She's a beautiful young lady. I wouldn't think she was 44. She could probably pull it off for a few more years where that's not the case. But I think as you age, the likeliness of being able to attract the type of men you were attracting in your youth tends to fade away. And I think this is where a lot of women are having some issues. Going back to the video.
And so it's been really tough to actually
What do you mean
find.
what do you mean your options have not been that great? I see you in Zoom. What do you mean I haven't been that great?
So the men that I'm meeting through, now because of the pandemic, online, they're just not the quality.
Hear my womanly roar.
I mean, the men you're meeting online are a reflection of what?
We just don't have the same value system. We don't have the same visions for.
So you work in government, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do decent for yourself?
Yes, I do.
Okay, why don't you reach into that wallet or that purse?
Mm-hmm.
Seeing as though you don't have
Mm-hmm.
you don't have any kids, you don't have any
Mm-mm.
dogs or cats or anything like that. Why don't you
I
reach
plan.
down there? They don't require much. Why don't you reach in your purse and go hire a matchmaker?
So a friend of mine did connect me to a matchmaker, but she was just starting out. So she said in the pandemic.
So in other words, you took the cheapest option possible.
Yes, that's true.
So you want a high quality man, but you want to be the cheapest. People, this is they set them up and I'm on down because this is modern women. This is entitled.
Mm.
This is the stuff I was talking about the other night. Modern women are dudes, delusional, ungrateful, denial, entitled, and selfish. You want to go to a free freaking app and expect to find Prince Charming. At 40-some odd years old, you want to go find somebody who just put their shingle out to find this high value, high quality man, but you don't want to put but 50 cents into it.
I think this raises another point. It's what are we willing to put into getting the desired outcomes that we want, especially pertaining to relationship. A lot of people are not willing to do much to get that outcome, right? A lot of times, we just kind of wing it. And we're not really being deliberate about finding someone that meets our requirements. We're not really making ourselves vulnerable. We're not really putting ourselves out there in the ways that we should. And I think, especially when women are assessing men, a lot of times they got their hands in too many jars, right? So you're not really giving any one man the fullness of you. And so in that situation, a man who is serious is not going to think you're serious if you're kind of like dating for sport, right? So I think this is what you're seeing demonstrated here in this conversation, is that I don't know that she's taking dating very serious. And you would expect this from a young woman, in her early 20s, but at 44, to kind of laugh off these things as if it's not that big of a deal isn't, is a lot what you'll find outside these days with women who feel like they have this indefinite amount of time to do this. And unfortunately, it's not the case.
And I'm
That's a
asking
good point. You're right.
But how much
Yeah,
longer do you
yeah.
think you have? Because you're gonna be 50, just like that.
That's true. That's part of the reason why I'm on the show right now, because I realize the talk is clicking and the clock is ticking loud.
But my question is, why do you think so little of men?
I don't think so little of them because I have some extraordinary male friends, but when it comes to
Do you have
personal
sex with them?
relationships, no. Well, no, I do not.
Okay. When was the last time you had a romantic relationship?
It's been about 6 years.
That you've had sex?
No, not since I've had sex.
That's what I was trying to say in a nice way.
Oh. A committed relationship, 6 years, sex since about December of 2020.
At your age, you should be teaching young women how to do this stuff. So when I ask you, why do you think so little of men? The way you're talking is though you just treat men like a convenience store.
Mm.
This is why I say, gentlemen, cut women like this out of your life. Stop being their friends.
This is an interesting point, right? He raises the point that, she seems a little bit young-minded to be a 44-year-old person, and you would expect there to be a little more maturity in terms of, this aspect of her life. And it doesn't seem like she is, what you would expect of a 44-year-old woman. And I think he's now sort of, kind of going in on her to say, like, this is a person who's not really taking life that serious, especially in that particular aspect. She may be well accomplished in her career and other areas of her life, but when it comes to this particular part of her life, she doesn't see any real value in really building a relationship. And if that's the case, then why would you, as a respectable man who has goals and a purpose to accomplish, why would you allow a person like this, to eat up space, eat up your time, right? This is a person who's not really taking the process serious. They're not really invested in finding someone and building with someone. So why would you give that person you, right? It's something that, every man should think about. It's how is the woman that you're entertaining? How is her mindset? Is she a serious person that you can actually build something with? Or is she kind of young-minded, even though she's in her midlife, right? So these are things to look into as you date.
I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm saying if men were to stop giving you their non-sexual attention, meaning you can't call me to talk to me. You can't get me to come change your tire. The only way you can talk to me is if we're having sex.
That's another point that he talked about is, are we making ourselves too accessible to women who aren't taking us very serious, fellas. You know, is this something that is detrimental to us to entertain a young lady who isn't really worthy of your attention, right? And so one of the pointers that he gives is to essentially restrict the amount of access you give people to you. And so I think that that's an interesting thing to keep in mind.
Call me to talk to me. You can't get me to come change your tire. The only way you can talk to me is if we're having sex. You ladies can figure out how to get along with a man. But because you can cobble together friendships with men, I mean, it's like I'll go get sex from this guy, and I'll get conversation from this guy, I'll get debate from this guy, and I'll get this from this guy. And
That's actually true.
And you're not learning anything about you. Hold on, let me get to it.
This is another great point to actually bring to the forefront, right? It's the fact that in these things, women have compartmentalized a dating experience with men, right? So a woman may see you as a good friend, someone that's willing to listen to them. And so anything that they want to share, you know, they just want to share that to you, but they don't necessarily have any romantic attraction towards you. So because that's missing, they compartmentalize. They put you in this box where you're the guy they talk to. You've been friend zoned. And so even though you go into the relationship expecting more out of it, expecting her to see you differently, thinking you're going to win her over at some point, in actuality, she doesn't see you differently because the attributes that you would look for that would make her sexually attracted to you is not there. But there are other aspects about your personality that she may like your ability to listen and have a conversation with her. So what the women will do is they'll put you in a compartment. There are some men who are well-to-do men, but they may not, you know, meet all the requirements that that young lady has in other areas. So they will put that man in a compartment, and you know, call that person their sugar daddy or something like that, or someone who is known to be a provider and provide certain things for them, and they may exchange some favors for it, but it's strictly transactional. They're never really fully invested in that because that's not the person they truly want, right? But that tactic of compartmentalizing a man in this type of man and that type of man and doing these different things leaves you in a way scattered. And it's true. You're essentially having relationship with multiple men for different reasons, right? And so in a way you're dividing yourself out, and the one man who probably should have all of you doesn't have all of you. So it ends up being something where, you know, it's hard for anyone to really make a connection to the fullness of that connection because there's pieces of you every which way with different people. So that's, you know, something to keep into consideration. But also men, the lesson for you is don't be a one-dimensional man. Don't just be a man who's good at sex. Don't just be a man who's a good conversationalist but not good at sex. Don't just be a man who doesn't carry himself properly, who doesn't, you know, intrigue and excite your woman because you let your health go, right? Balance that, right? Make sure that you appeal to the various things that a woman may like about a man, how you carry yourself, how you talk, how you, handle her, how you respect her and love on her. You know what I mean? How you take charge. Those are things that women are drawn to. And if they're missing, then in some ways they may go out and seek it elsewhere. So food for thought.
When you go out and make babies with a man, that's it. You can't really expect to get higher than your baby daddy. And especially when you come with 3, 4, and 5 baby back to back to back to back, you're not looking for a stepfather, you're looking for a sucker. With all that stuff going on, and I'm not supposed to say that. So it's important that you choose who you choose to have your kids with. So now, I need to ask you a question, Miss Christine.
Hmm.
Do you have any siblings? Any male siblings? Any brothers?
Yes, I have one.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Is he married?
Yes, he is.
Watching my show, has it surprised you what men are having to deal with on the dating scene?
No, it has not.
Really?
I mean,
It's interesting.
I will say that I do think so. My mother was Afro Latina and an immigrant to this country, and she was Garufuna and very
She was what?
outspoken.
She got plantain? What?
She was Garufuna. They're the Africans that were brought to Central America during the diaspora. But anyways, so she's very outspoken.
Mhm.
And I think in this day and age now, women are very much empowered to voice their opinions.
Woman, get back in here and make me a sandwich.
Yeah, you're empowered. You're empowered to voice your opinion.
Did I not make myself clear?
But are your opinions based in the things? See, when men voice their opinions, we have to be able to back it up with action.
This is Kevin's way when he presses those bells. This is Kevin's way of saying you're becoming long-winded and you need to get to the point. I mean, it is a little rude because it does kind of interrupt their train of thought. But he kind of had this tactic of trying to redirect people back on topic.
True.
Okay? Women often talk about shit that you cannot do. Meaning, how many times you sat around with a woman, I don't need no man to survive. I don't need no man. Have you ever said that yourself?
At one point, yes, I did say that. But as I've gotten older now, I realize how much I do need a man and definitely yearn to be in a relationship and marriage for that matter.
But when I say that you need a man for survival, it's not men aren't even optional for women. We are required for your survival. You know how many women that offends?
That's a point that I think needs to be raised. Why is it that women say so much that they don't need a man, when in actuality they need a man? It's just that in the moment of them saying that, it's not convenient for them to have a man because they're obviously acting as if they're too independent to have a need for one. But let something come up that requires heavy lifting, that requires someone having to stand up for their honor, that requires someone having to come rescue them from a situation. Then they realize that they need a man in that moment because they're calling a man to come do those things. But in the moment, they feel like they don't. And I think that that's part of the delusion that exists when, women, excel in their careers and they feel like financially they're a bit more sound and probably better off than men. And so now, because they can fulfill certain things financially for themselves, they now take that overboard into saying, well, because I can pay my own bills, I no longer need you. As if that's all a man's purpose was, to just be there to pay your bills for you, right? A man serves a much bigger purpose in a person's life, in that he's a protector, he's a provider, he's there to console and love on you and to be a present help for you. And in the event that you're not seeing your man as more than just a person with a checkbook or a person who's supposed to be providing for you, then, you end up taking that man for granted. So this is a good point for you guys to also consider as well.
Have what? I'm sorry?
How many women that offends, meaning you can't survive without us.
Mm-hmm.
We can survive without you. We just can't reproduce. So how we got here is opinions. So I'm going to say something that may be offensive to a lot of women, but I'm going to go there. You got nieces and nephews, right?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
What age ranges?
The youngest is 12 and the oldest is 27.
Okay. So you watched the 27-year-old grow up.
Yes, I did.
And you also seen the 12-year-old. They got
Mhm.
opinions too, don't they?
Sure do.
But don't you sit there and listen to their opinions. You like, you got no idea what you're talking about.
Correct. Yes.
Because I got to get up here and go live in this grown world while you got an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, that's how men think when they hear women. But it's impolite. It's impolitic. Are you comparing women to children? Great philosophers of our world have often done the same thing. It's even
Mhm.
codified in one of the movies. My favorite movie, The Godfather. Women and children can men have to be responsible. Women and children can be
Mhm.
reckless. So it's not about necessarily having an opinion. It's about having an opinion based in reality and action.
But does that then mean, as we've been talking, that I just, because I remember I listened to one of your previous shows about settling and women hedging their bets for the next best man. But at the same time, at my age, my options are very limited because I waited so long.
Okay, you got to ask a question. You started 3 different thoughts.
And so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, at this stage of my life, does that mean because I'm not in a relationship, is it not possible for me to attract a quality man at this?
Well, it depends on what you mean by quality. Let's start with socioeconomic status. Are you over 6-figure earner?
I am.
Do you expect him to be over a 6-figure earner?
Ideally, yes.
Uh-huh. Then you automatically want the top 10% of men, and they don't want 44-year-old women. See? So the men you're talking about are extremely small, and they want something. And they generally want children and Lexi. And if one thing they want, and even if they don't want children, they want cooperation, something you've shown you don't have a track record of doing. And I'll give you a further example. Your long distance relationship further proved the point that you lack the ability to cooperate in a real relationship. Long distance relationships are not real. When was the last relationship you had with somebody who lived within 30 minutes?
We weren't in a committed relationship. It was more of a casual relationship.
Then it doesn't
and
count.
That was
Doesn't-
a year ago.
Doesn't count.
Yeah.
When was the last one where you were in a committed relationship?
In the same city. It has to have been at least 8-9 years ago.
All right. Well, those are your relationship muscles. They've atrophied. Now, it's not as though in the Bay Area there are not plenty of suitable men within 30 minutes from you. So the question really becomes, Kevin, are you saying where I'm at in life, do I have to settle? That's really what you want to ask, but you just don't want to ask it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You'd
True.
be fortunate to get an average man. They'd be settling for you. That's what I need you ladies to start understanding. If
Okay.
every man got married, if every black man got married today who was marriageable age, all of them, including all the gays, there'd still be 2 million more black women. You outnumber us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, this notion of settling has thrown you guys off to where you're all wanting the same small group of men who are like, okay, fine. But they got their pick, but they can only pick one. What man wants to be your second choice? What man wants to? Do you not think the men, if you were dating a man who was making $50,000 a year, do you not think he would know that you felt like you were settling for him?
Yeah, he would know.
And men would rather die alone than have a woman who settled. Mm-hmm. This is my point. Y'all are going to have to start reframing how you look at relationships. What is a man's value outside of his penis and his wallet? I mean, at 44 years old, the value of a man has to be more to you than a woman who's 20 years younger than you. You should have matured more to say a man who may not make as much money, but he may be learned, skilled. He may be able to teach me things, but I may make more money.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mhm.
still going to play by the, hey, he has to be on my socioeconomic level, cool. That means it makes sense. You got to compete with the women around him.
It does. Yeah. No, and your points are very valid. So thank you.
At the end of the day, it comes down to making a deal. All right, let's just say you're stuck on, I see you, Ali. Would you mind sharing?
Share my man?
Yes.
No. I'm
Well,
very
then-
territorial.
Then get a dog or a cat, or get a platonic relationship or compound living situation, because you want a man in the top 10% of earners, and you want him to be monogamous with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is an unbalanced deal.
How so?
You want 100% of women want the top 10% of men.
Right.
He should be able to pick. If he's 10 times as valuable, he should get 10 times the women.
Wow.
Do you think you get 7 billion people on the planet with monogamy? When only, I mean, look in the Black community.
true.
One out of 4 people are married. 1 out of 4 Black women are married. The average
Mhm.
woman who has a child says a 60% chance of their second child by somebody else. Do you realize in the Black community, 80% of the children are coming from roughly around 18% of the men?
Wow. I don't think I really stopped and thought about that breakdown.
Well, if you look at the numbers, look at the married numbers,
Mhm.
look at the
Mhm.
children coming out of marriage, and you got to look at the children coming external to marriage. How often is it that you meet a woman who has a child and then has a different baby daddy? Or like the previous woman, 1 child, but 3 men, but 3 children by 1 man. That means for every man who has multiple children by multiple women, let's say you have a guy like Darren. Darren has 5 baby mamas, and he should only have 1, right? That
Mhm.
means he has the women of 4 other men. Those women are in a they're in a poly relationship with him.
That's true.
So if your options are to get an average level man and settle, or get a higher value man and just have Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I'm okay with an average man as long as he treats me well.
You're all right with a man making $42,000 a year. See how quickly that see, and I want you folks to remember, when you say I'm shallow and this and that, how quickly women minimize and objectify a man to a dollar value. Don't ever come at me when I talk about a scale. When women do it all the time, 42,000 was like, well, I don't give a fuck what is it, 42,000. It ain't gonna work.
So as you see in the video, apparently there's different standards when it comes to choosing a mate. Women can have some unrealistic expectations, but they expect to get the top of the line. But if a man should say, you know, he would like his woman to, you know, be respectful and mind her weight, and you know, be mindful of how she presents herself, or you know what I mean, then he's not allowed to have that opinion. And I just think we need to change that, right? We need to change it and get better with it. I thank you guys for joining us for this reaction video. Definitely tune in. There's a lot more great reaction videos and commentary we'll have, as well as shows. So we appreciate you for having this moment with us.
Bye.